but I didn't want to say it.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. We're live. It's Nikki from Automation Ladies. And in true Automation Ladies fashion, we had a little bit of a technical glitch where I thought we were live and I started talking. And we were, in fact, not live. So thank you, Courtney, for saving my butt and for bringing this onto LinkedIn. And hello, everyone. And sorry we are a couple of minutes late here. Please, if you're joining us live, say hi in the comments. Let us know that we're actually now on LinkedIn and that I'm not screwing anything else up. And tell us where you're coming from. So I'm going to repeat myself, hopefully in capture the gist of what I just said to nobody while we were here backstage. So we have a live demo. I think this is our third live demo on Automation Ladies. And I want to thank Software Defined Automation for being brave and being cool and being willing to come do a live demo for everybody that has interest in seeing what they're doing. And Allie is here. Hey, Allie. I'm so glad you made it. I was just saying earlier that although, you know, with Automation Ladies, because we all have day jobs, we all have projects, we all have customer facing responsibilities, it's never a guarantee that all three of us or two or three of us make it to a stream. So it's a special treat today that we have both Allie and Courtney with us, especially because this particular demo of the platform from Software Defined Automation is, and I'll let Philip explain this better than I will, but it's for managing, you know, PLC code and PLCs of many different vendors across, you know, different plants or projects or whatever. And I've never programmed a PLC in my life. I'll have to admit, it's not my area. I've seen them, I've worked with them, inputs, outputs from stuff that I've been programming, but I personally don't write PLC code. I don't do any versioning. I don't do any management. So although I probably I will be very intrigued and I'm very excited to see this demo to really get, you know, kind of practical feedback and insights from, you know, we definitely need either Allie or Courtney here today, and we have both. So I think that this will be a really, you know, valuable time spent. Thank you guys for joining. And thank you, Philip, for being willing to do this with us. And I know that we're doing a little bit of a different thing today because we are accommodating Philip joining us from Europe. So it's already pretty late for him. Thank you very much for doing this with us. And I guess before I let you introduce yourself as the guest, I just want to let Allie say hi and Courtney say hi. And maybe you guys tell the audience what you guys are up to and where you're at today. Courtney, go first.
I'll go first then. Courtney again. I am actually sitting in the office today, thankfully. We've been throwing together a trade show demo for the AACC trade show coming up in Anaheim, end of July. So if you guys are in California or you're planning to attend that, come check out booth 701 to see our hard work. But yeah, I've had my head buried in a robot for the last week and a half, so I'm actually happy to be sitting in a desk chair.
Very cool. Allie, you, I can see, are in your office as well.
I am. I'm just working on lots of things, some business things, like and then some I'm putting my own kits together. So I do have a nonprofit called Kids PLC Kits, but and that is being run, but I'm also like creating kits for like people that work for me so that like I can train internally like in my company. And so I've been buying some hardware and like playing with that, and I'm excited to get it out. But I'm really excited that this weekend me and Courtney are actually meeting Maria Moreno to like say hi to Miriam Suleiman in San Diego. So we're all going to San Diego this weekend, and it's going to be awesome. And that's all I got. My second vacation, my other one was Automate.
Work-related vacations. I can't say I'm not jealous that I'm not meeting you guys in sunny San Diego, although I'm in sunny Houston right now. It's what, like 110 degrees. So San Diego, though, is never too hot. It's just always nice, right? So Miriam is coming from Nigeria. She's been working with you for how many years now remotely?
At least 2 or going on 2. Like I went to a FANUC training and I posted, like pictures of like me and like the LR Mate, like a little 6-axis arm by FANUC. And that's how we met. And me and her were talking about that picture. So we met on LinkedIn like that early, because that was like the very first thing I went and did when I started, or I went out on my own, as I went and did that training. Yeah.
Very cool. And we have so many people here, both from Europe, from the US, from different, states. Thank you all for saying hi. We're so glad to get to spend an hour with you guys seeing this stuff. So Philip, I'll let you go next. Hello, special guest. Would you like to go ahead and tell us a little bit about, who you are and what you're doing and why you're here?
Sure. Hey guys. Thank you for having me. First of all, I'm very excited to be on the program and talk about what we do at Software-Defined Automation. And Ellie, awesome background. I love the PLC and on your wall in the back, as we have an increasing number of PLCs in our office as well now. So I'm Philip. I'm responsible for product management at a company called Software-Defined Automation. We are 24 people located primarily in Munich and Boston. I joined the company early on as employee number 3 or 4. And my personal background is at Siemens, spent 4 years there working on IoT strategy, digitalization projects. And I'm a technical guy by training. So before Siemens, I did a PhD in physics, but I'm not an automation engineer. So I have to admit that up front. If any hard questions,
I wouldn't have had to mention Siemens. I would have known from your use of the word digitalization that you're an ex-Siemens guy. I know they love that. So very cool. As a fellow early startup employee myself, this is my second one with Quotebeam. I was employee number 1. At my previous one, Algo, I think I was number 6 or 7, but the first non-engineering hire. It's a special kind of role, risk, reward, workload to take on being an early employee of a startup. And you usually have to be pretty passionate about what they're doing in order to do that. So can you tell us a little bit about what made you make the switch? Why is what you're doing at Software-Defined Automation so important?
Yeah, I was early on convinced by the idea, and this dates back to basically 3 items that I observed in my time at Siemens, and also the other core team members saw it in their respective projects. So I think, first of all, it is high engineering cost in automation, industrial automation. And this paired together with an increasing difficulty to attract talent, convince young engineers to program PLCs and HMIs in the way they are programmed today. A second challenge certainly is inflexibility in production setups. So most of the setups I've seen, they are really primarily mass production, very rigid, rarely updated. And this makes, things like lot size 1 and flexible production difficult. And it's also interesting, I think, from a sustainability point of view, as we manufacture a lot of goods, right? But if we wanted to do things like made to order and produce more individually, that would require much more flexible setups. And third, last but not least, I think there's a lot of unnecessary downtime in factories today. So I said updates are rare, but if you do an update, it is a very tedious process. Usually you do it step by step, device by device. And then also mistakes happen, right? If you don't have the latest version of the PLC project, or you deploy it over a newer version, you miss something, you reintroduce a bug. That's what we have seen with customers. And then if you go a step lower and you look at what are the technical root causes for this, right? Why it is like this? We are seeing things like missing innovations from IT software development. For example, things like continuous integration, continuous deployment. That has been around in IT software development for a long time. And why not use that also in industrial automation? Of course, there's a ton of arguments, why it's different and why it's difficult to deploy this. But if you compare to other physical assets, like, for example, an automotive company, we see an increasing trend for over-the-air updates, right, with electric cars. And I would say a car is a very critical asset where you need to make sure that the software is tested and works well, right? And then other things like missing remote access, a big issue. We still see people traveling to fix a PLC, to be on site, or to analyze even a problem first, and then try to fix it. So these rare breed of automation engineers, they spend a lot of time traveling, which is not very efficient use of time. This is, together with the very sort of proprietary ecosystems we are seeing, I think this is the set of challenges that where we as SDA, we are trying to support and contribute our part to mitigate those challenges.
It's pretty exciting. I'd say I would, from my standpoint, agree. I actually just posted something yesterday that I reposted, very interesting, but it was I think the CEO of Ford talking about how the challenges that they have in their EVs versus Tesla, for instance, because they don't control the software in a lot of the modules that are in the car. They're controlled by the suppliers that provide the module. And they can't just go and make updates or changes. They have to go to each individual supplier of that module and have them make the changes because it's their IP. And, you know, there's a whole lot of discussion as to whether that is legit or, you know, whether that's just an excuse or that Tesla, you know, has some of its own challenges and they also use modules. But it really just reminded me, the first thing that came to mind for me was like a manufacturing plant with a bunch of different equipment from different OEMs. And the manufacturer not having the ability to just get into every single PLC on their plant floor, whether it's due to restrictions from the OEM, the varying different operating systems, languages, you know, whatever that is. Parallel there may or may not make sense, but in my brain, that's the immediate connection that I made. And it sounds like, you know, this is kind of a universal problem that I'm very excited to see how you guys are fixing. Allie, Courtney, you guys want to chime in on any of that stuff from your own experience?
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in projects where I've had to either use the software, you know, written on another module and, you know, I have to get in touch with that engineer in order to make changes, or I am the engineer that wrote the software on like 4 different modules and just lost track of what I was doing, you know, and without like a unified platform or something, in a lot of cases, it can get to be very confusing.
And Allie, I know you work with a lot of different types of PLCs. Obviously, on your wall back there, you got Allen Bradley Siemens.
Oh, hey.
There you are. You're back.
Yeah, I just went from like regular or I switched to Wi-Fi. I wasn't on Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I think that is a huge challenge. The fact that like every factory has to have different platforms, different versions. You know, even the versioning of the same platform is a giant challenge. But yeah, you do plants, like unless you're going to pay all the extra money to force it to be one platform, plants do have a bunch of different platforms because they go and buy individual machinery at once. So they'll get a robot from somewhere and they'll get conveyors from somewhere and they'll get, I mean, if it's a, you know, like, you know, pumps from somewhere, pump skids, or like a centrifuge with its own controller. There's so many types of machinery that have their own controller and their own smarts anyway. And, you know, and that is like, and then so that is its own challenge, is having to like bring together with one system. That's the other problem with traditional SCADA and why there's so many like platforms sitting on top of people's SCADA is because SCADA originally started with like one platform SCADA. So they want you to hook up all their PLCs to their SCADA. But like since then, we've had the issue of every platform needing to go underneath one SCADA. And so now companies are opening up to be more platform agnostic when it comes to sitting on top of the controllers. But in the end of the day, like how are we going to get everything inside of one factory to be one platform, you know, one PLC type? It doesn't happen. It's not realistic. And we're actually going in the opposite direction where companies are trying to be like, well, we just want to see our piece in that plant. So they're not trying to say like, we will not sell you that if you have this other, you know, device. It's like, we just want in the plant. So however they can get in there, you know, these companies like this are going to help us like get all of this stuff in there. And, you know, he talked to the point of traveling engineers. That is the single most expensive part of being an integrator is they're down for 8 hours. If I have to go all the way to Florida, and I have done that, I lose all of that. I mean, unless I'm like managing from the air, which I can do, and I can't program that much. I hate being up in the air, So I want to just like relax, and we can't afford to do that constantly with like all the people and all of the stuff they have in their brains. We need all those integrators like sitting on the ground, like telling people what to do, not the other way around, where they're going somewhere. And even our technicians, like we need to figure out a better way, but software is definitely going to help us do that.
And I know you've mentioned, Allie, like the challenge with the experienced integrators or programmers, PLC programmers that really know their stuff. They don't want to travel anymore because they're more valuable now. They don't need to live that road warrior lifestyle. But at the same time, then the ones that are young and no attachments, willing to travel, they're the ones that don't know. So you got to marry the two somehow. Get that knowledge out to the people that are like willing to be out in the field and connect them. So anyway, I think we should just, Philip, unless there's something else you want to say, I'm pretty excited to dive into this. I can bring your slide up here and we can start with that. And then we're going to actually get to see the platform live. So let's give that a shot.
Sure.
And I would suggest you guys, if you're watching this, if you want to see the details, especially when we get the application up on the screen, is go ahead and make it full screen so that it's a little bit easier to see the details.
All right. Yeah. And I mean, very interesting comments, Courtney and Allie. I could relate to a lot of that. And I'm also looking really forward to get your feedback and your impressions from an experience from the field. So what do we do at Software-Defined Automation? It is 3 different components, and all of them can be used modularized, right? So you can use each of them alone or in combination with the others. And it's just, I promise it's just going to be 2 slides before we jump into the live demo, but just to give a little bit of context and overview of the solution. So the first component is called Version Pro. This is a software to version PLC projects in a vendor-agnostic way. So you can upload the project, you can store it in our platform, you can sync it to your local workstation, and then you can view the project and you can view the changes that were made in the project, also in graphical languages and functional block diagram and ladder logic. And I'm going to show that live anyway. The second component is IDE as a service. So this is when you want to edit the project. I mean, you need the vendor-specific development environment, such as TIA Portal or Rockwell Studio 5000. And we are streaming those development environments in the browser. So you can open them on any machine. You don't need to have it installed locally. You could work on a Mac, for example, that I don't think there's many automation vendors. Mac version.
Oh, crazy.
What?
Validate my life, thank you. Even though I'm not the one doing this, but now I could if I want to, right, on my Mac.
And I'm going to show it, right? You will see. And then the third component, that is PLC Ops. So that is now connecting to the actual physical PLC. So if you're an operator or you're a manufacturing company or even a system integrator working for a manufacturer, here we have our own connectivity solution to grant remote access to the PLC. So you can use that with this IDE as a service, the streaming in the browser to go online, to a deployment, to an online change. But you can also use that for automated functions that we offer. So for example, a regular backup run that runs once every day to retrieve the latest project on the PLC in case somebody in the night shift made a direct change to the device, right? This occurs often that somebody just goes to the PLC, connects and makes an adjustment, but nobody's aware or it's not documented anywhere. So that system would, in the next backup run, automatically detect this. And there's also a visionary feature that is for automated deployments to PLCs that is very similar to the continuous integration, continuous deployment, CI/CD mechanism that I mentioned in the beginning, and I will show how that looks like. And then if I go just one page further, I mean, to give you an idea of how that solution on a very high level in architecture looks like. So you're seeing on the right side is the edge, so the on-premise shop floor component. And we have a connectivity client that is a soft client that can be installed on any existing IoT gateway. So it can even be a Raspberry Pi based device. It can even run in a virtual machine. That is what one customer is doing now. And that connectivity client allows the remote access to the cloud platform. And of course, that is sort of developed in the most secure way with complying with modern firewall restrictions. It can even run in a demilitarized zone for the network experts. So that's very flexible. Then we have the cloud platform that we are hosting and providing. And then the engineer has 2 options to interact with the platform that you're seeing on the left. So you can use optionally that streaming service to run the development environment in the browser. But you can still also, of course, work offline, have it on your local workstation. And then we have a small Windows client that allows you to sync projects, to check them in, check them out to our platform. That ensures that all the data is stored, right? Similar to Dropbox or Google Drive client. So that's the overview. And unless there's any immediate questions, I will jump to the live demo and share a different window.
I'm going to bring this question up, not because it's Jay, who wants to work on a Mac, me, and a bunch of other people that I know. Granted, I wouldn't say that the majority of PLC programmers that I know would, but I think that's, again, a function of just being forced to use Windows for our entire careers. I bet there's a lot more people out there than you think that would love to work on a Mac if they could. And
actually, in Europe, I think they do a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of my coworkers in Europe have, use Mac or like Linux-based laptops.
And I, for one, am a huge proponent of letting the customer use what they want instead of you trying to dictate to them that they're doing it wrong. So.
Yeah, I can tell that one of our IT software developers in our own company struggled a lot to make any of the automation engineering environments work on Linux, right? He has lots of Linux experience, but I think in the end he wasn't able to and install the Windows virtual machine to somehow make it work. So it is very bound to Windows currently.
And I'll make one comment. I used to sell software to the company that makes it, and it can be hard to convince them to buy their competitors' hardware to run your software, for instance. So there are cases. They make a lot of hardware, by the way, all over the world. These people that also they use a lot of automation making those Macs, man. Somebody does. So anyway, I'll move on from that point. Go ahead, Philip.
All right. So now we're seeing our product live in a web browser. This is, first of all, I'm starting from the slide I showed on the left side with the version Pro. So here we are seeing a list of PLC projects. So each of the entries here would be one PLC project, one row. And we're seeing first, okay, that has a name, it has a vendor, Siemens. In this case, it's a TIA Portal version 17 project. And it has a bunch of different versions. So I can just go here and I see a list of different versions with a small comment on what was changed, who from the users that are on our platform, who made this version, and also where it came from. And we'll come to that later, but you're already seeing here entries like the SDA backup service. So this was retrieved from the PLC. You see the IDE as a service, so somebody streamed the development environment in the browser and saved a new version. Or you see, here early on, some projects here were uploaded and from a local workstation. So that is sort of basic file version in the beginning. Now, I can go ahead and say I want to open one of these projects. So let me just filter here one. So I can just click on View Project, and it opens now the entire automation engineering project here. So we're seeing the full project tree on the left, like it very similar as it would appear in Siemens TIA Portal. And I can just sort of see the elements. For example, graphical languages here. This is the function block diagram. I can see ladder logic. This is now all in the layout, how it looks like for Siemens. Unfortunately, the vendors, the languages are standardized, right? But the layout and how it is positioned is different per vendor. And there's also structured text. And then besides this, there's all the hardware info. Like, for example, here, this Profinet interface. We would see all the parameters of the So this is just for viewing it. But now, of course, the interesting thing is, what was changed, right? So I can go back to the project versions. And now I can say, hey, I want to compare two different versions. And in this case, let me choose the initial version and let me show all cumulative changes that happened over all of these versions, right? In total, what was changed if I assume I contributed this first version, for example. So I go here, click on compare, and now it loads here, highlights just the elements that were changed. So that the red one, for example, was deleted. The green one was, this data block was newly inserted. And for this functional block diagram, it was changed. And it highlights me sort of the changes, what was removed in red and what was added in green. And likewise, this also works for ladder and for structured text. That's the that's the easy part, because that is what at least the IT software developers are used from version control, right? That they already use. And then you can go ahead. I mean, this is Siemens, right? So, but now you can go ahead and say, hey, I mean, this is a Rockwell project. And I also can look in the same platform without having the vendor-specific development environment, and without knowing that, even without having a license, I can also look into the Rockwell project. So I could even compare side by side and leverage best practices, or see how was that solved in Rockwell, right? So far, for example, we are seeing with customers that the automation engineering departments, they're very isolated per factory. So the guys that, I mean, sort of multinationals that run factories in the US and in Germany or Europe, the automation engineers in Germany, they have limited knowledge about what the automation engineers in the US do, because they work in a different stack. Right? So here we have a Rockwell project that's shown in a different layout. I can tell you that making these multi-row ladder diagrams is very hard, but we have to. And likewise, you can go ahead and then, I mean, compare different versions. Like, let's say, let's take this one and let's take the latest and see now what was changed in between there. And we'll also then highlight, I mean, just what was changed. So if you go, I mean, I don't know, here on machine control, we see what was changed in this functional block in the same way like we saw before. So that is the Version Pro component, and I mean, currently we have it for Siemens and Rockwell. We are expanding continuously to other vendors based on customer interest. And of course, for the management here that you see, I mean, you can filter by project type. You can filter by vendor, for example. I mean, put your own tags. So if you have any sort of tags that you want, like, I mean, I don't know, this is site 1. I mean, you just add a new tag, and then afterwards you can filter, sort your projects. This is very customer specific, right? What kind of asset hierarchy you have, I mean, or geography, or ready for release, or in development, and so on. So
what are you working on next, platform-wise? Like, what's in the works?
Yeah, so we have already a partial support for Backoff and for Codesys. We are working on this to expand that as well. It's a large sort of set of features, including the PLC ops that we offer, right? So for each vendor, it's a step-by-step increase in features.
Cool.
And yeah, so now coming to the second component, right? The streaming of the IDE in the browser, potentially on a Mac. I can go ahead and say, hey, this is the project, and I mean, I want to open just the latest version. And so this will open our second browser tab soon, and in that browser tab, we will have the stream development environment. Currently, this still takes around a minute to a minute and a half to load, but we will very soon, I think within the next 2 weeks, we launch a version where this starts in 15 to 20 seconds, so much, much faster. While this is opening, let me show in parallel how that looks like license-wise. So there's a full license management behind it. In case your development environment needs a license, like it is the case for Siemens, customers can upload their existing licenses to the platform and then use them here. So we see now in this account, we have 4 licenses. 1 is currently in use because I just started the session, right? So it's blocked right now. But there will be 3 other licenses. So we could have 4 people working in parallel. And it gets a little, I mean, there's lots of details involved in this. So then per project, you can really choose which licenses are sort of needed for this project. And it will scan if any of these licenses is available, because sometimes you need special combo licenses that all the modules you need in the development environment are available, right? To make sure that is the case. But then once you have linked the project to the license, you always also make sure that the project is opened in the right version with the right license. Right? It wouldn't happen that you open it accidentally in the wrong version and then you have updated it and there's no way back often, right? And then you have these version conflicts. So if I go back here to the second tab, so now we're seeing that it's just loading the project, and basically now we have a full Siemens tier portal. And honestly, when we developed this at the beginning, we were very skeptical about the reactiveness. I mean, is it fast enough? I mean, can you navigate well, or are there any lags? But this works really, really well. I mean, we get lots of good feedback. It's a gaming engine, or an engine that was developed for gaming applications below this. So you can just here go and then start editing. And I could also course, then go online to the PLC if I have a PLC link that is connected, but I will come to that part very soon. Yeah, so now I can make any change. I can save the project as a new version anytime. And when I'm done, I just go and click End Session. I choose if I want to save the changes or not. Maybe I just looked at it or wanted to try something out. Now I won't create a new version, but otherwise you can give a comment, and then you will have a new entry in that version history that I showed before. So let me end this session, and then it will soon close this tab, and then we can go back here. And you saw also it was quickly green here, the button, right? So it indicated that currently somebody has opened this project. So other users in the same customer account, they would see that and know, hey, somebody's editing. So I can't edit right now. And that's, by the way, also, I mentioned that we have a local client for Windows if you want to work locally. And you can also check out the project there such that it is blocked for other people so that no one works in parallel on it to not have conflicts later that are hard to resolve. So that was a quick demo of the second component. So let me come to the third piece of the puzzle. That is now going to the view that we call devices. And now we come to the actual physical PLCs, right? I mean, everything so far you could just use for programming without even yet having a PLC, just developing a project from scratch. So here, now on the left side, I mean, we're seeing a list of gateways. So each gateway is one of these soft clients that I mentioned, so the connectivity clients that are installed in a Raspberry Pi or an IoT gateway. And it's, I mean, to show you, it's very easy to create any of this. So if I go here, just click on Create Gateway, and let me choose our new version, and I just call it Test Gateway. What you get then is an installation command. So this is, I mean, for whoever is familiar with the command line, this is just a curl command for our installation script. So you click here, you have it copied, you go to a command line, you SSH into that Raspberry Pi or IoT gateway, you execute that command, and the gateway is set up. The only thing you need to make sure, of course, is that firewall sort of rules are compliant with the requirements that we have. So once you have this gateway set up, I mean, we're seeing here one gateway that is up and running. It's doing a quick connectivity check to see that we can currently successfully connect to it. And then I can have PLCs below that gateway. So in this case, we have a Siemens PLC here, 1211C. We're seeing, again, projects. So these are projects that are linked to this PLC. Each project, I can say, hey, this project belongs to that PLC. So only list the ones that we have a link to it. And we see here also, again, the history of versions, but then we see this second last version is the one that is currently deployed. And it came actually in from the backup service. I will show that soon. So if I go here to control configuration, we are seeing, I mean, all I have to give it to connect to the PLC is very few data. Mostly it's the IP address that it knows, I mean, how to communicate and how to reach the PLC. And now here I can also configure the backup service. So I can choose the, I mean, weekdays, a particular time per day. I can do a manual backup run right now. This would take like 3 to 4 minutes to retrieve the project from the PLC. And I can also enable comprehensive notifications. So from all the users I have in the platform, I could say, hey, if there was a new version, if the backup service detected that the project that it's on the PLC is different than the latest version that we have in the platform, it should send an email to whomever to just make sure that people are aware. Maybe that change was intentional and was done by the night shift, but there's also customers that would never have this, right? So in case that occurs, it would be likely an intrusion or somebody that changed something that should not have been changed. So that you can flexibly configure if in case just that the backup ran successfully, I get a notification and so on.
Excellent.
And then so that's the backup, right? And then the more sort of visionary feature is here, the deploy feature. So I could say, hey, this is the project. I mean, the latest version, I want to deploy that to the PLC without now going into TIA Portal, going online, doing the deploy. So I would click here. And now I have a bunch of vendor-specific options, like, for example, after deployment, do I want to be in stop mode, run mode? Do I want to do a full software or software and hardware deployment, only changed modules or the full project, and can start this? I mean, there's a warning message, of course. And if I started this now, I mean, it would also take like 3 to 5 minutes to deploy this project down to the PLC. And together with the backup service, then you get a full, what we call deployment backup history. So here you're seeing everything that happened on the PLC, basically. For example, here we have done a deployment. That deployment was successful, took 5 minutes. I can even access like more detailed logs in terms of pipelines. So this is very much inspired by typical deployment pipelines from IT. I can go into the detailed logs. And then also I have the backup service. So here, 3 days earlier, a new version came in for this PLC that came from the backup server. So as said, I mean, it was some change that was made directly to the physical device. So if I go here, likewise, I have very, very detailed logs on everything that happened. Yeah, and then I mean, the last part that I haven't talked about so far is the user management, just implicitly. So if I go here to our admin section and show the user management, then let me, to showcase this, I mean, just add a new user. So you can test.com. And now for this user, I can set the access permissions really on the device level and on the project level. So for each and every single PLC I have here, I can say, hey, this guy is supposed to have edits rights on this PLC, and it's supposed to have edit and deploy rights on this PLC, for example. And I can, on top of that, I can even get time-wise restricted access. So I can say, hey, this access is only valid for the next 3 hours. So this is what one of our customers is using for working with externals. The system integrators that you mentioned, I mean, they're heavily relying on the system integrators to help them, but now they don't have to travel on site anymore. They use this platform to give employee X of the system integrator access to just one specific device, and then they can do the change that they need to do. And similar, I mean, I can do that on the project level. So for each and every project in the platform, I mean, here in this demo account, they're named very similar to compared to the devices. I can also get read, edit, access, and so on. And then if that person logs in, that person would only see the specific devices.
I have a question. I think my first blaring question is, when are you going to be able to do this with HMI also?
Partially, we already are, to be honest. I mean,
yes!
So for Siemens, I mean, Siemens is like an integrated project, right? They have everything in a single tier portal project. So you can already upload, I mean, projects with HMIs. You can open them, of course, in tier portal. You can deploy them, you can even part of the HMI you can already view in the project viewer. Here, I would need to ask our technical experts for that, but they're expanding to multiple devices and HMIs as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think, and then the next level would be like the robot controllers.
Yeah. So we have, I mean, if you look here, I mean, you see multiple entries like robot, PLC, HMI, others. So it's clearly the idea to expand to the wider automation stack. Currently, we focus on PLC because the PLC landscape, as we said in the beginning, right, is very wide. But we are strictly prioritizing based on customer interest. So that will be a question of, I mean, whom we're working with, right? I mean, what is needed in the market, how we also regarding different vendors, right, on the platform. I mean, there's a bunch of different PLC vendors also that we are still missing at the moment.
So how does that work? Do you work with the vendors directly to get them onto the platform, or is it kind of you can do it whether or not they're directly partnered with you? And if there's any vendors watching this and they want to be on your platform, you know, should they get in touch? How does that work?
Yeah, please, I mean, reach out anytime. I mean, we have done it now a few times, so we're getting better with every vendor we are onboarding, right, and more used to it. So we're trying to standardize this as much as we can, even though each stack has, of course, its own specialties.
Yep.
Yeah, we really see ourselves as an add-on for people that, for customers that have multiple vendors and want to have everything in one platform instead of one platform from one vendor A, one platform from vendor B. That's the mission, and I mean, we're open to any collaboration.
Very cool. So Ani, somebody from you guys, SDA, put some information in the chat as well. If there's anybody other than Philip that people should reach out to for different things like vendor relationships, partnerships. And I know that they already put your LinkedIn, which of course they can find you from the event and just click on your LinkedIn profile, but it's also in the comments here. Yeah. No other questions from me at this point. I immediately also thought of like a really large brand that told us that they spec all their machines in the US with Allen Bradley and all their machines in Europe with Siemens. And, because they have very different resources, right? Trained resources at their plants to work on these different things. But I can imagine that having some whole overview like this would be super beneficial, as well as potentially like cross-training. Right? Do you really want your facilities to be siloed to technicians at plant A only know this platform and technicians at plant B know a different one? I'm sure that causes problems too.
Yeah, and there's lots of additional use cases you can imagine. I mean, if you have the PLC code, for example, standardizing the code, right? Quality checks on the code. I heard multiple times that code written from programmer A is so specific in the style of programmer A that programmer B can't really read it. And I mean, if you talk to an IT software developer, they can't believe that, right? Because they have lots of standards. If you start with a big tech company, I mean, you have to you automatically check that you stay within their style guide, right, or their programming paradigm. These kind of things. Or imagine a machine builder that publishes a new version for a specific machine on the platform. So there's a newer version than the deployed one, and then the customer gets a notification that, hey, there is a new version and can update when he wants to, like basically an over-the-air update to machines that comes from machine builders.
So from the world of systems integration, I know it's been, at least for me in the past, kind of painful to have, an IDE for all the different things that we use. And your IDE as a service is kind of like a mind-blowing concept to me. When you were talking about, like, if you have an offline license already and you need a license to look at a version of, say, TIA portal programming, what if in the future, I have a whole bunch of different versions, a whole bunch of different licensing needs, but I don't have all of those licenses? Is this something where I could pay for the amount of time that I need? Like, say I only need a license of TIA portal for a week and I don't want to buy like the whole license. Is that something I can do?
So right now we are only offering the option to bring your own license, right? I mean, we have to stay, of course, and we are compliant with the agreements we have with the vendors. I mean, to not sort of be non-compliant with any sort of license agreements. So currently, you would have to bring your own license. And I mean, the business model for us behind this is, of course, charged based on time you use the streaming service.
So what would be needed in order for us to be able to have something like that? Because I realize it would probably be a violation if you guys had like a universal license for the IDE and you were sharing that with users on like a per use basis or a time basis. But what would everybody have to, like, what would it take to make that happen? Because I feel like that would be you're just already, your concept of me not needing to have every single IDE installed on my machine is already kind of a massive leap forward in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, in principle, I mean, we will likely have it. I mean, for example, we have the streaming also for Beckhoff TwinCAD. I mean, soon for Codesys. I mean, for those IDs, you don't need a license, so that's easy, right? And we may also, for some vendors that we're talking to right now that require a license, we may offer a service like you described, where you get the license also from us, right? And then you just sort of pay per use for the license and the development environment. But unfortunately, I cannot be more specific at this point.
Okay.
Here's a tip to everybody, right? Vendors that are watching this, talk to these guys about this, because I think from the user standpoint, the use case that you just described, Courtney, it makes so much sense to have the option to like rent the license, essentially, is what we're talking about, or pay per use. In one of my previous positions, I mentioned selling some software to hardware developers, and this is a simulation software for virtual prototyping for designs, electronics, so modeling Maxwell's equations on the CAD model. And at the time that I was doing it, it was like 2013. We were just starting to see the demand from customers for this. They wanted to get, you know, pay per use licensing. Same thing with the high performance computing hardware that you need to run some of these models. You can like run it on AWS and you can pay for the server time on AWS, but you'd still have to pay for like a 3-month license from the software standpoint was the minimum that you could get. But if you only had a project that required like 3 weeks worth of work, it's hard to justify the economics for paying for a 3-month license. And, you know, the rest of the software world is definitely already on, you know, the software as a service model, being able to pay maybe monthly, right? Of course, there's going to be different tiers to that too. You should pay a premium maybe per hour if you're renting it per the hour versus buying a yearly license. But any industry that operates with any kind of software, and this is just my opinion, right? The model of a one size fits all, you buy a, you know, perpetual license or a year, you know, we need more flexibility than that. So if you're out there and you're in any position that has to do with the licensing of any of these products, think about this and contact these guys, or figure out how we can work together more flexibly as an industry to enable these types of edge use cases, right? You'd want your stuff being used more rather than less, right? So why not get in there on a small project? Like Ali was saying before, saying, oh, I don't want to sell you this PLC unless you convert your entire plant over to my brand. Everybody realizes that's not necessarily feasible anymore, right? It's better to get in there and try to prove yourself and then expand than have this whole all or nothing approach. So that's just my 2 cents.
I've seen a change recently in wording, you know, like if you were to be like a preferred integrator for a certain product, you know, there used to be, you know, wording using exclusivity that I'm seeing go away now. And just vendors are asking that you show preference, but not requiring the exclusivity anymore. Because I think that was kind of off-putting to some of the smaller, you know, I don't want to say mom and pop, you know, but the under 20 employee, you know, kind of companies are going to, I think, go in that direction more. And that's just my...
The other thing is like, right, businesses, yes, we talk about technology and what's the best technology, but oftentimes it is, you know, a lot of things are relationship based. So you want to have a respectful 2-way relationship between a vendor and a customer. And so, of course, if you're like asking for huge discounts, then back it up with preferring that vendor or having some sort of volume or whatever, right? Like, but there's tiers to this. Not everybody is willing or able, or, you know, especially right up front, to just be like, oh yeah, you know what, I'll just do business exclusively with you. For what reason, right? So I think all of this like flexibility and interoperability is good for our industry, also just in the sense that then like we don't have these artificial barriers that are keeping companies they can just like kind of sit on their laurels and not innovate. And just their customers are locked in. They don't really have to be competitive in terms of innovation. The more customers have choices, right? And the more they can experience the different technologies and environments and so on, they can then choose what works best for them based on, you know, both the features and, you know, technical abilities of the platforms that they're using or the brands. But the other thing is, it's like just the quality of the support, the people at the company. I mean, all of those things matter. And that's part of the reason why I love doing these things and letting people come on and do the demos. Because, you know, and in the beginning, let's talk about why. Like, why are you doing this? And because, you know, ideas, a lot of people can have the same ideas. Like, you're not the only company thinking that version control for different, you know, software or different PLC programs is a thing that the industry needs. But then there's another, you know, thing about how great is the company that you're dealing with? What do they have behind it? You know, why are they doing it? What's their commitment to actually keeping up with developing this and supporting all the customers as you grow? Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting time to be in industrial automation. I mean, we see trends and things moving and things changing. And certainly we envision a future, I mean, like you see from our product, right, where sort of interfaces are more open, there's more cross-vendor compatibility. When it's always, I mean, for me, interesting to see when we have new IT software developers in our company that come from a pure IT background, and you explain them the challenges in industrial automation. I mean, first they have a lot of respect actually, because they realize, okay, these are physical assets, so you should not make a mistake. I mean, if you deploy a wrong software in the cloud, I mean, some API may be down, but you can roll back and it's all good. But if you deploy something wrong to the machine, right, that's difficult. But then also, they are surprised, like, okay, there is a programming standard like IEC 61131, right? So theoretically, the languages are standardized, but then automation engineers are, at least the ones I see, I mean, often are specialized on one single vendor, because it's very, very difficult to switch from one vendor to another one, right? There's so many specifics in hardware, and even in programming paradigms, in the way, how you have to work with them. So I'm very excited to see that. It will take time, but how that will change in the future.
Yeah, I know Courtney's one of the few people I know that like will say she can work in any IDE, just give her a little bit of time, you know, to get the ramp up, right? But a lot of other people are like, no, this is what I know, and this is what I do.
And it's funny because I think like one of the things I used to joke about was seeing that in job listings, like must have 5 years Rockwell experience, and, you know, like certain things like that. I feel like you're missing out on an employee that understands ladder logic and maybe just hasn't done it on Rockwell. But Rockwell is also its own kind of beast. But, you know, IEC 61131 defines 5 languages. And if you understand the, you know, ladder or structured text, it should look the same in all IDEs. I really like this concept of like having the viewer and saying, maybe if I don't have a license for Studio, but I want to at least look at the code, you know, to your point earlier, the language is defined to look one way, but every IDE, maybe things are cheated more to the left or cheated more to the right, or where you find a function block is different here versus that one. But just to be able to look at the, you know, the function itself, it should, you know, be understandable by anybody who understands, you know, the ladder language or the structured text language.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, the idea here really is, I mean, imagine, I mean, you as an integrator, for example, you come back to a customer that has a problem, and you want to quickly analyze what happened in the meantime, right? What did they deploy? What changes did they make? That you could do just in the browser with our viewer, without even bothering to find the right IDE version. If you want to locally or streamed, you can just easily track it.
So a question on you know, say I'm using your guys' platform, and I have a company with 5 employees, and we're all over the place in the US. That I have a customer that's using, you know, like I typically use like Omron and Siemens products myself. Not that I'm lost in Studio, but I typically, if I have Rockwell things, I give them to Ali or my husband, who understands the projects better. But like if I had a friend on the East Coast who was closer to this customer, how easy would it be for me to just give them access to what I can see, like with my customers in SCA?
You just create a new user. So I mean, you have your account. And by the way, I mean, we are fully self-service, so you can just go to our website, start a free trial, create your own account. There may not be all features activated from the beginning, so then just please get in touch. But you can try it out yourself, and then you really go to the user management and create a new user and choose, I mean, which PLCs should that user have access to, which projects, and then that person, independent of where he or she is sitting, can access the project or even the devices if there's a physical connection via the connectivity service.
Excellent.
And then you can always see it, you know, at any point in the future, that user was the one that did something. So even if it was like you gave that somebody a temporary access because you had a temporary need, and I'm just thinking of like an example of earlier, Ali needed somebody in Grand Rapids to do something, right?
Yeah,
so she found
exactly
somebody that she can work with and contracted him to go out and do some stuff. I don't think it was like software related like this, but to be able to kind of have that flexibility in your network, whether it's your employees or your contractors, but then have full, basically auditability into that. So let's say this person came in, did a project for you for the day or the 3 hours. I don't know what traditional methods there would be to do this otherwise, but I would think that just having the visibility forever that this person did this thing and pushed it to production or made a change to the code or whatever, that would be really useful.
Well, a use case I'm imagining is just like, even for myself, all of us who work, day jobs, a lot of us that I know work day jobs, also have side hustles, but we don't all necessarily work for the same company. Like I own my own little shindig called Fast One, and then Allie has PCE. So we don't necessarily both work for the same company, but if I wanted to pass off a project to Allie, it seems as though I could issue her like a temporary login. Like I could take it back after I give that to her, right? Like if I said, hey, log in, you're one of my users, now you're done with that project, I'd like to give that user information to somebody else. Like all of it seems like it could be temporary, or am I
Yeah, it can be temporary, of course. Like Sean, I mean, you create a new user, you just choose, I mean, what time the access right should expire. Okay. Or you just manually deactivate it yourself, right? If you're not sure yet, I mean, how long she's going to need access to it, and then she tells you, hey, I got what I need. You just say, hey, here, this access to the project. I mean, let's say this is full admin rights, and it just expires. I mean, I don't know, on the next day at 9 a.m., for example.
So that makes it easier for us to collaborate across companies on the same project, which can sometimes be painful, because if I had, Fast One Solutions has a license for Studio and I want to share that with, PCE, sometimes that kind of stuff can get tricky. But something like this, where we can collaborate across different companies, is, I think, highly valuable.
That's actually a pretty cool use case, because I know there's a lot of, at least here in the US, I don't know how it is in Europe, but there's a lot of smaller sort of independent owner operator or integration firms that, and some kind of collaboratives almost, where a person chooses not to, make a big company with a lot of W-2s, but they have a network of other independent people that they work together on projects. But who does it really fall under? And the main customer, right? One of the companies is kind of going to be the one with the contract, but then they'll bring in the right people from their network of sort of independent people, whether it's somebody does the robot programming and somebody does the simulations. And that allows you to have a really agile kind of company that can do a lot of different things, with kind of the best of breed, person or whoever's available at the time. And this would be like a really secure, traceable, easy to use way to facilitate that sort of collaboration.
Yeah, especially with the traceability, to really know, I mean, who changed what, right? When in the project for just coding, or also in actually deploying to the PLC, to have that traceability and not sort of have a weird behavior actually at the physical machine and not knowing what was changed and how and who did it, right?
Absolutely.
Or the fact that I could set, a timeline to that access. Like your access just expires at midnight on this day, and if you need more, you have to actually reach out and tell me, like, hey, I didn't finish, and I need access again. But we have. Yeah,
and then essentially you keep you keep the users, but the access has expired. So if you then need to extend the access or give access again, 3 months down the line, that user is still there, doesn't go away. And that actually does bring me to a question. How do you price, and how is the licensing for your software? Does it, like, if you were to add more users like this and give them temporary access, do you pay per user? Do you pay per, projects? How does your pricing work?
So it depends on the different modules, right? So for the versioning and the viewer, it is seat based, so it would be per user, a subscription fee. For the streaming of the IDE, that's usage based, because that's also our infrastructure cost. So you would pay per hour, and measured, of course, precisely in minutes. And for the devices, for the PLC ops, it would be per device, a subscription fee, depending on how many PLCs are connected. That's the model that we have.
Okay, so pretty flexible, can scale up or down. My example of earlier, let's say you have a user that you want to give temporary access today for a project for a week, and then 3 months down the line, are you having to pay an entire, like, per month, per seat? And is there a way to maybe, I don't know, put a user on hold or something like that, so you're not paying for them for the 2 months in between?
Like pausing my gym membership.
Yeah. Or do you have to delete that user, remove the seat, and then start it all over again if you have a new need?
So the seat is only needed for the access to the viewer of the project. So if you look at the user management, you probably saw that. I mean, for each of the users here, you can choose if that person has version pro access or not.
Okay.
So somebody that does have not that activated, he would not see that view project button or would get the message that he or she does not have access to that, right? So adding a user that does not have access to Version Pro is free. So you can add a user to give him access to the files, to the project, and use the storage to sync and create a new version. But if you want to look at it without opening the IDE, without having the license, then you would require a monthly license for that particular user.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, little connectivity issue. Can
right.
you repeat that?
Yeah, there's one more argument also on the side of remote access. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, one more argument on the side of remote access. I mean, there's increasing number of remote access solutions out in the market, right? But usually what those do, they enable you to connect from your workstation via some sort of VPN solution, right? And it's hard for the customer to know what is on your laptop and how well your laptop is protected. So there may be something malicious on your laptop that then has access to the OT devices. So instead of what we do, we connect just our secured servers to those devices, while the end user is always just in the browser, right? So if you have something running malicious on your laptop, it would not be able to directly communicate with the PLC or the OT device. So that is completely isolated. It's just the sort of the secured servers from our side that are highly secured that connect to those devices.
Cool. Yeah, I would have probably asked at some point too about, always when we talk remote access, we also got to think about cybersecurity, right? It's so important. And, you know, VPNs have become super common, right? But there is a lot of risks there, like you said, absolutely. And I know the cost of cybersecurity insurance is skyrocketing. So hopefully at some point, maybe you can show your insurer that you're doing things this way versus, you know, some other way that's less secure. And maybe that can help keep the rates in check. But certainly that is, you know, if anybody is considering any kind of, you know, online, any software, any connectivity, definitely have to be thinking about cybersecurity. So I'm sure that's a topic that you guys are happy to expand upon with any customer, to how exactly, you know, your environment works and how it will fit with their security practices. And if they are big enough to have a cybersecurity professional on staff or anything like that. We have those conversations, right?
We have a full white paper on our connectivity solution. So I think Annie, who's in the chat, I mean, she's
okay.
Share the link also to that. So whoever wants information, I mean, we're happy to dive in detail. We've talked to lots of cybersecurity experts now at larger customers that, of course, I mean, have a big say in making sure that the solution is safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're up on time. So thank you so much. This was awesome to see. I love where this is headed. And I think what we're going to do, since this is not, you know, this is obviously very visual. I'm going to go ahead and say this live. By the end of next week, we will have a YouTube channel where we will publish this and our previous demos. Probably not all of our interview videos yet, but these are the things that should be out there in you know, video format, because we can't put it out on iTunes necessarily. But we will have then an episode on automationladies.io that will link to the video. And then we can also have links to your resources that there will be here on the LinkedIn Live. And this will live in the same link that so if anybody's watching this now, if you want to share this with a friend or come back to it later, the recording will now be living at this link. There's a lot of resources and links in the comments of this LinkedIn event. But we'll also go ahead and make sure to make those links to those resources available on the automationladies.io page for this particular demo. And then I'm sure, you know, following this in the next few months, we'll try to, you know, put out some more information together, maybe snippets of the demos, those sorts of things. So, but I'll add this up here. Yeah. If you want to get in touch with SWA, then
yeah, please.
Sorry, I don't know where the W came from. Self-defined automation, then you can go to their website. I like the IO. We're fans. And you can try it out. So again, we love this. Let's make the barriers low. Let's let people try these things, figure out if they work for themselves. You can get in touch. You can start a free trial and then get in touch with these folks so that you don't waste your time with the free trial. If you need some help, definitely talk to them. They'll help you figure out what they need to be looking at, what you need to be looking at, you know, how to see whether this has value for you or not. So we'll have all of those links up on the site. And it looks like we had a few questions that got answered by some of your other experts. Ben Newman, thank you so much for asking some, questions that were relevant. I wanted to bring this up as well. OPAF, Open Process Automation Forum. I haven't actually heard of this. So all different initiatives out there for interoperability. It's important for us to be aware of. So maybe I'll throw a link up to that somewhere on the resources page when we get this on the website as well. But I think with all that all said, we managed to only go a couple of minutes over the hour because we started a couple of minutes late. So this was perfect. Anything else?
If anybody downloads the software and does the free trial, reach out to me and Allie and see if we can collaborate. And I want to test out that feature. Let's try collaborating together.
So we had one question I want to address. Did someone say PLC Kids was a program, or was it PLC Kits? So it's Kids PLC Kits. So you heard both things correctly. It's Allie's nonprofit, not just Allie, but there's a wonderful team behind it, including Courtney and our friend John Pillar, who has been developing the curriculum. But basically, we're providing, or they are providing, real industrial hardware PLC kits to teachers that may not have a program, an official program or resources to teach this stuff to kids, and then providing support to those teachers in the form of curriculum, technical support, help getting this in front of their kids. And they have a need right now for volunteers to help Kids PLC Kits adapt the curriculum that's been written for a particular PLC to every other vendor's PLC that's out there. And so, Lightbulb may be getting a software like software-defined automation as part of that curriculum, where you can actually look at, different ones virtually. Maybe a kit comes with a Siemens PLC, and then letting the kids look at what is it going to look like if you did it in some other environment, right? There's probably a lot of possibilities there. But that's what Kids PLC Kits is about, is trying to get what we do out there into the world a little earlier than right now, which tends to be post-college or maybe post-technical education. People really don't get their hands on PLCs early as much as they do things like Raspberry Pis or, programming in, Java or C++, whatever, like all that stuff kids can access pretty much as early as they want. But industrial stuff is very gated, very expensive, and very hard to get a hold of. So I think that's kind of the gist of that. Do you want to add to that at all, Courtney, or did I get any of that wrong?
No, I honestly, I think you nailed it. The idea is to get kids the same access, to learning PLCs as they do to an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi. So. And
then if they decide that they want to be controls engineers, then hey, they're going to come out of the gate into the industry knowing different IDEs, hopefully, rather than just being stuck with one. And that's the flexibility that we need. Definitely, we need more technicians, we need more controls engineers, and we might as well have them knowing all the different things rather than being stuck with one particular vendor.
Yeah, but me and Allie are going to hire you guys first. So if you got a Kids PLC Kits, you gotta come work for us first.
All right.
Like awesome initiative there.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. If anybody wants to donate either hardware or software to Kids PLC Kits, it is a registered 503c nonprofit here in the U.S. Get in touch with Courtney or Allie. We have a couple other team members, John Pillar, Liza Gongora, and Courtney Pendon, who I think I threw up on the screen earlier. She joined us here from Washington. So get in touch with any of those folks and figure out how you can help, how you can get involved. With that said, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining the demo. We hope that this was interesting, useful, helpful. If you see the recording of this, keep the comments alive. Ask your questions. We'll come back here. Tag software-defined automation in your questions, or Philip, or any of their folks, Ani, and they'll come back to the comments and help answer any questions that you have. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.